Hello everybody and welcome to Comically Incompetent. My name is Doug. This week we are doing something new. We're only doing twice a month from now on. And also something pretty awesome. We have a new guest for the first time in God knows how long. Introducing our brand new guest for the first time making his debut, Avery Anderson. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Doug. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, friend of the show,
I am
Avery.
Super excited to be here. It's about time we did some podcasting. And we got a great movie to do, too. I'm super excited for this movie.
This movie is the only way that I could get you onto the show, was if we did this movie specifically.
Yeah, I needed you to sweeten the pot a little bit.
So why don't you tell them what you have decided we're going to cover for the month of April?
So we are doing Scooby Doo, the live action, and we're doing Scooby Doo 2, Monsters Unleashed. Two fantastic films.
The 2002 hit classic, Scooby Doo. And I could not be more excited. And I think the thing that makes me the most excited, though, is how much we love these movies.
Yeah, I mean, after the recent rewatch I just did, I forgot how much I really enjoyed watching these movies, like kind of growing up, right? The first one was, in my opinion, was a little more forgettable than the second one. The second one just had a whole lot more quips. I'm sure we'll get to all those. But yeah, no, these movies really hit me hard in the nostalgia bone for sure.
Exactly. Before we get too far into, though, I do want to introduce the beer. This week we have Secret Notion by Almanac Beer Company. I'll go more into them at the end of the show. But starting off with this movie, I think the first thing you have to talk about when you talk about Scooby-Doo live action 2002 is how spot on this casting choices was for all of these actors.
Oh, no doubt. Especially the selection for Shaggy, in my opinion. I think they just nailed that with Matthew Lillard.
Matthew Lillard killed it.
Such a good performance. I honestly, I think he was really good in 1, but he was especially good in 2.
Yeah.
And it honestly might be his best acting performance, in my opinion, just because of how so spot on his portrayal of Shaggy Rogers was.
To an extreme point that I think he voiced Shaggy throughout Scooby-Doo cartoons for years after this movie.
Did he really? I had no idea.
Yeah, like he wasn't for all of them, but like for most of the cartoons that came out, like the 2002 to 2008 era, he voiced Shaggy because he did such a good job in these movies. And it's just, Freddie Prinze Jr. as Fred. Obvious choice.
It's in the cards there. And then Sarah Michelle Gellar for Daphne.
Perfect.
Oh, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Oh my God.
And she was still doing Buffy, I think, when this movie came out, at least.
Was she really?
I think so. I think there was like a year or two crossover. Linda Cardinelli as Velma. Fantastic.
I don't know what she's been in since.
Linda Cardinelli?
Yeah. That sounds familiar, but I'm not sure if I can place it.
She's now MCU.
Okay.
As Hawkeye's wife.
Okay.
And then she was in Green Book. She was in here. Now I'm looking. Daddy's Home 2. So.
Oh, Daddy's Home 2.
Daddy's Home. Avengers: Age of Ultron. New Girl. Just like a bunch of TV shows and that movie, The Lazarus Project, that horror movie from like 2008, Brokeback Mountain, Grandma's Boy, like a pretty good.
Oh wow, yeah, that's a pretty solid resume, yeah.
Yeah, but I think you're right. I think Matthew Lillard was the all-star of this cast. Even like when you look at the reviews, like everyone's like, this movie sucked, but Matthew Lillard was awesome.
Yeah, just killed it.
And 2000 for this movie to come out. Plus, actually, I want to talk about too. The writer of this movie is James Gunn, who went on to write the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, classics. Now doing the Suicide Squad, and I think it's crazy that when they announced he was directing Guardians of the Galaxy, my first thought was, isn't that the guy who did Scooby Doo and Scooby Doo 2? Because that's how
classic.
Iconic.
Yeah, that's a really good choice. I think he really killed both these movies. I know the critics have some negative reviews and feelings about these movies, but
wrong. They're wrong.
Cult classics, man. Just cult classics.
I think the thing about this movie was, the best way I can describe it is, for like the film industry, like, yeah, it wasn't what people like expect, but they did what they set out to do perfectly to make a live action Scooby-Doo kids movie. That's exactly what we got. 10 out of 10. And I think when you look at like critics and stuff, they're thinking of it too deep, like too much. It's like, this one, the first one specifically, is very face value, and you have to take it for what it is. And it did it perfectly for what it was.
Oh, absolutely.
So
And
I know. Oh, go ahead.
I mean, just the intro scene, right? You jump in, it shows the Brothers logo, and then you get a big Scooby Doo bite right out of the side of it. That's just like, all right, here we go. They're not messing around, jumping right into this thing. I like it.
I'm in from moment one.
Yep, right there.
I also like the way this movie kind of picks up in like almost kind of like where we left off, like from the cartoons. Like Fred is still in his white sweater vest and his ascot and his perfect hair, and everyone was dressed exactly like they were in the cartoons. And I loved like how, as far as this movie goes on, they kind of start to stray from like that cartoony version of themselves, which I loved. Because I don't know if you saw this. Originally this movie was written to be an adult, like a PG-13 to R movie. That was like a adult take on Scooby Doo. And then Warner Brothers could not wrap their heads around that, but they wanted to do live action Scooby Doo, so they made it into this.
Interesting. I think it turned out pretty well. I think they did a good job.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing we did really miss out on was there was supposed to be a kiss between Daphne and Velma in the R-rated version that we lost.
That sounds a lot like the Space Jam Lola Bunny kind of. Yeah, but why?
Exactly. So I know you took a lot of notes. Let's jump into the more like the beginning of the movie here.
Yeah, sure. So just the detail, like the attention to detail here, right? So it opens up at Wow Toys Factory, right, which is owned by Pamela Anderson. Just the cameos right from the beginning, right? Just ridiculous.
This movie was definitely a product of the times.
Super over the top chase scenes that are just like the essence of what Scooby Doo was. You know, you got this massive plan that falls apart immediately, and Scooby and Shaggy kind of accidentally save the day. And you get this, I don't know when the Tony Hawk games came out, but I have to imagine it was somewhere around this time frame.
It had to
There was
have
a
been.
couple like nice like skate scenes with Scooby and Shaggy. And just like kind of ripping through this warehouse.
I wonder if Tony Hawk was a consultant in any way on this movie.
I would not be surprised whatsoever.
This movie, I like the intro because it is very like classic Scooby Doo with the kind of mixing in. You immediately see how great Matthew Lillard's going to be with his whole thing like there's a ghost right behind me, isn't there? Like immediately classic.
Super good. Yeah, we got our first Jinkies in the movie about 20 seconds in. I'm not sure how many we had, but it was just like, all right, the first opening scene. It's like, all right, this is like right onto the cartoons. It's checking every box for me.
Some zoinks. And immediately Daphne being the damsel in distress.
Yep. There was a scene in that opening scene where Scooby was running in place for a minute before he finds his traction, Fred Flintstone style. So good.
This is one that I watch, like, I wouldn't say frequently, but I've seen it like a heavy amount of times, and it still makes me laugh for some reason, like out loud. Like the second one more so, but this one like still makes me laugh out loud. If you the dialogue, like we'll get to it, but like some classic lines of like, is there a Scooby Doo? Is there a Mr. Doo here? Like we'll get there, but like, some lines that like definitely made me crack up.
Oh, and yeah, for sure.
This opening scene definitely has a few of like you said, like running in place and just like the gags, like the fire and the Luna ghost, and like it's just a very like classic Scooby Doo moment to like open up on.
The Pamela Anderson busted through the wall of her own factory in the Mystery Machine, which the Mystery Machine by itself, oh, wow, I mean, what a vehicle! Right? That thing is super well. That's super nice.
Yeah, I mean that has to be something that I wish if I had an endless amount of money in my life, I would buy that Mystery Machine.
That's definitely on the list for sure, with the DeLorean and maybe a couple other movie cars. Yeah, no, that's super funny. Then we have the classic bad guy name, initially Old Man Smithers. Oh my god.
I love, they kind of like full scented on like being classic Scooby Doo for this opening scene. You get Old Man Smithers, and he says the classic, and I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for those meddling kids and that dumb dog.
Yeah.
It was just so beautifully paced as well. And then we get to the point where like now the gang breaks up because of all their separate reasons, except for Shaggy and Scooby, who they're going to continue being those crime fighters, even though they're probably the worst of the crime fighters.
It's super sad, and like you get a little bit of background. I'm not sure how it follows in the series, but Shaggy mentions that he's just the guy that carries the bags.
Yeah,
so, like maybe that was his introduction to the group. We find out later though in the second movie though, that they grew up together. So I don't know what all that's about.
Yeah, I mean, you can't poke holes in this already sinking ship
Oh
of
no.
plot. Like I was watching it with my girlfriend, she was like, "That's that." Like she was like pointing out plot holes. I'm like, "Shh, shh, just let it go. Let it be what it is."
Let it live on its own.
And this is kind of where we move into like there's like time has passed. I mean, we don't know how long, but like a full on John Mulaney, like he was wearing glasses to show that time had passed.
Yeah.
And they get hired to go to Spooky Island, which I think one of my favorite lines that I didn't get as a kid was when they go to the guy who goes to recruit Shaggy and Scooby, and he's like, it tells about Spooky Island. They're like, we don't go anywhere with like spooky, scary, haunted, or whatever in the name. And Scooby's like, or hydrocolonic. He's like, yeah, or hydrocolonic. That's for a totally different reason, man. I had no idea what hydrocolonic was.
Please share what that means.
It's something of, cleaning out the colon by shooting water at a crazy rate into one's rectum, I believe. And I understand why Shaggy and Scooby would not, which now I'm curious, have they had a run-in with this in the past?
And I want to know the reason, right? You can't just like touch on it and never go back to it.
So I think the best things about this movie too is that because Scooby Doo is like so famous, like Man in a Mask, and this was so very like not that at all. They throw this movie into like monsters and demons, but never explain any of why or how. Really, of like what's going on on Spooky Island. It's such like
there's a lot to digest on Spooky Island itself. But I like how they recruited Shaggy and Scooby. They offered him money. It's like, no thanks, man. Not materialistic. Offered him like free room and board. But as soon as they mentioned that all-you-can-eat buffet, they are in. And I was like, yes. Like, classic. I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, I was watching the cartoon series. I was identified personally with Shaggy because he likes to eat a lot. And I'm like, oh man, I love like making these comically huge sandwiches and eating them. Right? So good.
They did a good job. They did a good job like bringing it in and making it like exactly what you want from the cartoon versions of themselves. Like that, something like that. Exactly. Like they could be terrified, but as long as there's food involved, they're going to be okay and they're going to go anyway. Yeah.
Super fun. Yeah, and then they all meet up at the airport. I think the first interaction was Fred and Vilma, and it's just super uncomfortable. I like so they all have their like little gigs they've been working on like individually in the meantime. My favorite of the group is definitely Fred's. He was promoting his autobiography. It's Fred on Fred, The Many Faces of Me. That's such a funny title. Oh my god! And like they're just poking fun at him for being so self-centered, taking all this credit for all this stuff. Then team dynamic just right over his head.
I mean, and that's also I think Freddie Prinze Jr. bringing that like so well to the screen. But yeah, I like that whole because the Velma and Fred dynamic is like Velma basically does all the work and Fred takes all the credit because he's like the pretty face. And I like that that's what they fought about years ago. And then Fred completely unknowingly leans into it and just does it more and makes a career out of doing exactly that.
Yep. Yeah, and they all have their individual, like they haven't grown at all really on personal levels at all. Like Velma's still kind of behind the scenes, like working at NASA, pretty cool, super smart. Daphne with her 7, 8, 9 carry-on bags, just ridiculous amount of baggage there. And then who could forget the introduction of Grandma Scooby?
Grandma, I love that. That was one I remember just laughing out loud when you see.
Oh my god!
Because Fred says like they let him on the plane, and then Shaggy's like oh they couldn't get big dogs on the plane, and he points, and you see Scooby coming out dressed as a grandma, and Fred's like, "Who's the old broad?"
So funny. Oh man. Which
is where also I think leads into the introduction on the plane of Isla Fisher's character. I think that's how you say her name, Isla Fisher. Mary Jane.
Yes, Mary Jane. Another really good line here from Shaggy. It says, they're introducing themselves, and it's like, oh, your name's Mary Jane? That's like my favorite name. It's like, oh, marijuana reference.
Another one I didn't understand as a kid. Like, it's one of those jokes, like, we talked about a lot in the Shrek movies when we covered them, is like, it's one of those things like that's a joke, but as a kid you don't know why, but you laugh anyway, even though you completely don't understand what they're joking about. But you're like, right. It's like, I'm supposed to laugh right now, and that was one of them. Was like the Mary Jane. And you're like, oh, okay, and then you go like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I think as a kid I more laugh because of Matthew Lillard honestly. Just the way he says, like, just
Yeah.
everything he says. It's just like, yeah, like, people start laughing, I'm gonna laugh with them. I'm a sympathy laugher, like, by nature. So if I see people laughing, I like to join in, even if I don't know what's going on. Maybe I'll get there, like, mid-laugh, and, like, it'll hit me. Spooky Air. This resort, this island has their own airline, and it is an absolute madhouse.
I want so badly to fly somewhere on that plane.
Oh, it's
There's
Spooky Air.
A bar, and like people are just getting up and walking around, partying and having a great time on this plane.
Yeah. There's like floral decorations. There's like a garden in front of like every fifth, sixth row. What is going on in here? People are just going crazy.
How expensive are those tickets? Like at that point, like it's gotta be pretty crazy.
Yeah, man.
But I mean, it's very like Scooby Doo as well. I feel like they did. I feel like that's a very interesting like thing that they did of like bringing in Spooky Island. But that was I think all the thing to draw Scooby in. Like that was the whole point of this plan, was like to make sure that he was there by, I think making it something that like would make them want to go.
Yeah, for sure. And something like head scratching for me, just like on a logistical standpoint, they're flying in the plane, right? And then the very next scene is them on a boat. So I'm curious why there's not like an airport, some kind of landing. If they have their own airline, you'd expect them to have some kind of means of landing the plane at the resort.
I've never thought of that.
They're flying somewhere else and taking a ferry to the island.
Which
is just one of those things. It's like, man, yeah, that's kind of strange.
Yeah. We also learned an interesting thing about Isla Fisher's character, Mary Jane, is that she also eats dog food.
Oh, the Scooby snacks, yes.
She eats Scooby snacks, and Shaggy eats Scooby snacks. And he's like, I've never met another person that eats them.
Yeah, so good. Scooby snacks, yeah, I forgot all about Scooby snacks. They didn't really use that a whole lot in the second movie, I don't think. But the first movie, they used it a couple times.
Yeah, I mean, Daphne uses it later in the movie.
Yeah.
Which, now I have to ask you, given the option to have a legitimate Scooby snack, would you eat one?
Legitimate Scooby snack. I would 100% try one. Maybe not a full one. I wouldn't just full send it, but I'd take a little nibble, right? If it's disgusting, I'd spit it out and move on. But
it's got to be good, right?
No one eats them. Mary Jane says I've never met anybody who has ever like eaten Scooby snacks before.
But when you look at the cartoon, like Shaggy puts his life on the line for those things.
Yeah, but I see people on TLC that eat dog food, and it's just like,
yeah. TLC kind of ruins it, doesn't it?
Yeah, a little bit.
My Strange Addiction.
Yeah.
I do want to like talk a little bit about when they get there. Introducing, I think, one of my favorite characters, just because of how stupid his lines are, is Rowan Atkinson as Mr. Emil Montevarius, who's something fishy's going on with this guy. And I love his dialogue because he's so like, once you know the twist in the movie, how funny it is, like all the little quips that he has, like when he's scratching behind his ear like a dog.
Yep.
Or like he was always sure that they're onto him, and then Fred will be like, "You're a suspect." He's like you can tell like he's onto him, and then Fred's like, "Just because you're creepy," and he's like, "Oh yeah." But he's an interesting character. Rowan Atkinson was another interesting pull for this movie.
Yeah, very, very. I don't know. Very interesting is a good word. He, I think, makes a pretty good bad guy, like a unsuspecting kind of
the unassuming
bad guy. Yeah, just like I can see it now. I don't know if I would have gone that direction if I was in charge of casting, but it ended up working out pretty well. I like his very first scene where he's in the big like.
Oh, the arm,
the carnival barker.
Yeah.
Arm. Yeah, he's just flailing his arms. He just pops out. So that's pretty cool. The CEO of the island's just here, giving out some PR stuff. People walking on the boat. The reveal of the problem though on Spooky Island is hilarious to me. You have all these rambunctious college kids coming off the boat, going on the spring break for spring break, and then you have people that are leaving the island, and they're just straight line, no nonsense, but their vocabulary was just ridiculous. So you got this one guy who runs into a childhood friend right in front of the line. It's like, "Oh, hey, Carol, how's it going?" And she says something to the effect of, "Get off my grill, son." And she picks him up over her shoulders and throws him like 30 feet across the beach, and no one reacts. I'm just like, what?
Yeah, she says something like, "Are you tricking on me?" It's such a ridiculous thing, which now I'm curious about the plot hole of, are there those demon things just like out in the world and we just never reference them? The fact that these kids are like,
Yeah, no,
we
they
know
left.
later. Yeah, and they're gone.
Yeah. Although, what was the point of them leaving?
Yeah, it doesn't help anything to
No,
do
it
with the
doesn't
plan.
push any kind of agenda. It's just like what. I guess to like get more souls in the pot. I guess when they dump the souls out of the pot at the end of the movie, they go across the ocean.
Which, you know, I know we're fanboys of these movies, but I think we have to admit there might be one or two plot holes.
No, there's a couple, a little something we can overlook here and there.
Oh, I'm overlooking the whole thing anyway.
It was a pretty low budget movie. It was I think the
it?
number was $84 million.
Yeah, even for 2002, that is not a lot of money.
Yeah, that's pretty low risk there, especially
And-
for a Scooby Doo movie.
Yeah, for Scooby Doo. Well, I mean, Warner Brothers. Yeah, you think Warner Brothers would give a little more? Because I think the budget was bigger for the second one. I'd hope so. I mean, it definitely went a little bit bigger on that second movie. But this one also definitely does like some pretty interesting stuff. I mean, the CGI didn't exactly hold up like it has in some of the older movies.
It's not terrible though. I've seen way worse from more
terrible.
recent.
Yeah. So then after we get this ridiculous scene of, are you tricking on me? That's when Mr. Emil Monovarius, or my favorite name that Fred calls him is Mr. Mononucleosis, gives him like the rundown of like what exactly has happened on Spooky Island, and now the gang is like, we're gonna all solve this on our own.
Yep, and they just rush to solve it. They all go running across, and I noticed that Shaggy did not pick up any of the bags. For being
That's
the guy
true.
that just carries the bags, he didn't carry any bags.
We never saw him carry one bag. This movie was
Not
a
even
lie.
a single bag.
Matthew
If
Lillard is
anybody's carrying
canceled.
bags, it was Daphne. Daphne was carrying some bags.
Well, someone was carrying her bags for her. Oh no,
that's
not when they
right.
got there. You're right. She was carrying herself. I just thought of this. I just remember. Do you remember that movie? This has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Kind of. Looney Tunes Back in Action with Brendan Fraser.
Oh, I do remember seeing it. I don't remember anything. I don't remember anything of it though. I don't remember. It doesn't stick out at all.
There's a really small snippet where they're on like this whole thing of, like cartoons living with real people, and they're on the Warner Bros. lot, and there's a shot of Shaggy sitting at a table with Matthew Lillard. Like, and he's like, "Man, you portrayed me horribly in those movies." And Matthew Lillard's like, "I don't know, like I was just trying to like bring the character to life." And then he's like, "If you do that again," like he threatens like Matthew Lillard. It's ridiculous. I just thought that. Sorry, but yeah, this movie is then immediately starts going off the deep end. This is where we start introducing like some of the crazier parts of Spooky Island, and I think one of my next favorite scenes, which I don't remember if there's something between. Let me know if I'm missing something. Is the haunted house ride.
The haunted house ride. Yeah, that's jumping ahead a little bit. I think before that we had Vilma doing a little side quest, looking at the projection of the ghost, and the introduction of the former luchador wrestler.
How could I forgotten the luchador guy who was for some reason a major part in this movie, and I love, yeah. So then they're kind of going through like these demons, like basically the monsters we see throughout the movie, and he's like, "Do my creatures frighten you?" to Velma, and she's like, "They would, if it wasn't for the holographic projectors." Which I was like, "What a buzzkill, man!"
Super buzzkill. Also, the projectors, they go ahead and spoil the bad guys of the movie. Like they just show the real face of the actual monsters.
They take away that wow value later in the
Yeah.
movie when we do see them for the first time. Which they're so stupid for being monsters, because we get that scene of we got some hamburgers here for you. Is that the next scene? Because that's I think one that we need to go.
That's the next scene.
So this is one that you and I think most of the reason you and I actually bonded over this movie was there's a scene in the movie where Shaggy and Mary Jane and Scooby go like this kind of like bar hangout area, and the guy at the bar is like, "I got a phone call for a Mr. Doo here." And this guy's like, "You, Melvin Doo?" And he's like, "Nah, Scooby." So Scooby gets on the phone, and the guy's like, "I got a bag of hamburgers here for you in the middle of the dark part of the forest." And Scooby's like, "Okay."
Okay. This is pretty funny. So Melvin Doo actually has this is kind of separate from the movie for just a minute.
No, go ahead.
He's got a pretty good like random following online.
Does he really?
Yeah. So I found that you know what copy paste or copy pastas are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people just like there's like a wall of text. People just like they copy it and paste it whenever something pops up. So Melvin Dew has its own copy pasta.
What is it?
It is hilarious. Okay, I'll go ahead and read it out. So okay, this guy says, "Hey guys, I have a proposition to make. Everyone at Warner Brothers, listen up. If you guys want to make some big bucks, I have a fantastic idea for you. Make a Melvin Dew standalone movie. Melvin Dew was the most influential side character in the live-action Scooby Doo 2002, so much so that many consider him to be a main character. He has so much backstory to build upon, and that as fans have researched the lore would be incredibly excited to see a movie based around him. His most memorable piece of dialogue came in the scene when Shaggy was trying to impress Mary Jane at the outside bar. I feel so nostalgic talking about this, even though I watch the movie nearly every day. This line is just so memorable. It is, in my opinion, the most famous line in the entire movie. We got a Mr. Dew here. I got a call for a Mr. Dew, the bartender says sternly. Melvin Dew? Melvin cleverly responds. The writers obviously even knew that this line would have received such critical acclaim since they even synced up his line to the music that was currently playing. Fans of Baby Driver, eat your heart out. The most important reason for this incredibly famous line is that it adds so much needed comedic relief to this terrifying movie. This movie has you on the edge of your seat in anticipation of what's going to happen next. Many moments of this movie make it seem like it should have been rated R or even X. Like the scene where Fred's body changed. Who knew, am I right?
What is that?
It just goes on and on and on about the backstory of Melvin Dew. It mentions the manga, main series, the movies, and he's the only character that really deserves his own side standalone movie.
Just
so funny.
That's amazing. I wish that I could. You have to send me that later because I want to read through that.
It goes on for another probably 300 400 words.
Because that Melvin Dew bit is one of the funniest bits in the movie, and he comes back later in the movie when Scrappy Doo goes insane. He's like, Scooby Doo, and he's like, you mean Melvin Dew? And it just shows Melvin again.
So funny.
Part of me thinks that should happen, but then also I know that would be too much for our society to handle, and as a country we would crumble if we got a Melvin Dew solo movie.
Yeah, I don't think a whole lot of people would get it. The right people would, though.
We would.
Yeah, the right people would, and I think it would do well as like a Donnie Darko kind of project.
I will sign a blank check.
I'll pitch. I'm not going to sign a blank check. I don't got that kind of bankroll yet.
Yeah, that's okay. This show doesn't pay anything. I pay. No. I give money to make this show, so I'm losing money for this. Someone had to go buy this beer, and it's not the sponsors we don't have. But that scene is like one of the funny, like that. I get why though, because that line was so ridiculous, and I think probably the funniest line in this whole movie, from the fact that it's so stupidly funny and so out of left field. It was beautiful.
Melvin Dew. Who would have thought?
Which then we see the monster and how ridiculous the monsters are, that they came and catch Scooby in the middle of the forest.
Yeah. But the chase scene is super good, right?
Just, fantastic.
Launching off a palm tree. Then the soundtrack's pretty good. The escape music.
Yeah.
And then he comes out of the forest where he's like, Shaggy, monster, monster, monster. And then this guy in a bunny costume comes out. Like, rah! He starts dancing.
Oh, like, he's like, come. Yeah, That bunny costume is actually like a character from something. I saw what it was, but I don't remember. I lost it. I had it somewhere, but yeah, that actually is like a character from something. So like they had to pay rights to get that bunny scene.
Oh, really?
Movie. Yeah.
God, that's a significant part of the budget for this super low budget film.
Also, yeah, well, this movie's so low budget, but when you look at the cast, like Freddie Prinze Jr. was huge in like the late 90s, early 2000s. Sarah Michelle Gellar, obviously huge. Matthew Lillard coming off of Scream in those movies. Like, how did they afford like I feel like a good 60% of the budget went to just paying the actors for this movie. Rowan Atkinson,
yeah. And then the CGI too. I know It's not super great, but that stuff's expensive.
Oh yeah, definitely just render all that out.
Yeah.
And then this is kind of where we move into like the middle part of the movie of like kind of introducing you into like the monster situation. Then we get the first monster attack on the hotel. But that's after we introduce the villain of the piece, Mr. Cornelius Scrappy Doo.
Oh yeah, with the classic flashback scene on going on a road trip.
Yep, and Scrappy pees on Daphne. You were marking your territory.
Puppy power, and it's revealed to us that he's not actually a puppy. He just has a hormone deficiency. That's super funny. It shouldn't be as funny as it is, but it's pretty funny.
It's pretty funny. Because this whole thing is like puppy power and like just making fun. Like, he's not even a puppy. He has like a gland disorder. That's pretty classic. And then after the first monster attack on the hotel is when everyone. So Velma and Fred get captured, and instead of helping, Shaggy, Daphne, Mary Jane, and Scooby just fall asleep on the beach waiting for the Coast Guard to do nothing. Which I don't understand. Were the Coast Guard a part of the thing with the evil laugh? Were they?
You know what? I thought so, but they were talking way too normally for them to be like monsters in human bodies.
I don't know the Coast Guard piece of this, and I'm so curious.
Yeah, just go to the beach and wait for us to go, and they start laughing at each other for 10 seconds? An uncomfortable period of time, by the way.
A very long period of time.
And then it goes quiet, and then they would just flash up to them waking up on the beach, and then volleyball goes over. Hey, Red, little help.
I love though this leads into one of my favorite cameos in the movie of the band Sugar Ray playing at the pool party. Sugar Ray was such
Sugar Ray
a period crap.
Yeah, usually I like movies when they don't show a lot of technology like cell phones because it really dates the movie.
Yeah,
they really avoided that here, but they shot themselves in the foot with the pick of Sugar Ray. Oh man, yeah, this is an old movie.
I don't think I could even name a Sugar Ray song off the top of my head. Like I know, and they're from like right around where I live. They're from Newport Beach, California.
Oh, nice. Noops.
What an interesting choice of band, which, again, in 2002, that they were probably, like, top of their game, I would assume. Yeah. Right?
It's like peak spring break music right there for that time frame.
Oh, they're also plugging an album. They had an album come out called Sugar Ray. So, because right here, popular Sugar Ray also made several movie appearances, including Scooby Doo.
Several movie appearances. Okay, so they went through a movie phase.
They did. They also got to be bad guys in the movie in a way of he's singing at Daphne and all of a sudden his eyes turn green and all weird.
Oh yeah, he was a villain, and then he was actually one of the main villains because he was on top of the shed where Shaggy and Scooby end up fleeing to.
Oh yeah.
You see him beating a hole in the top. The guitar beating a hole in the top with the guitar. Oh yeah. Man, another really good line, a quip here from Shaggy and Scooby where they see Fred and Scooby asks why is Fred in a bad mood? And Scooby's like, he's not in a bad mood, Scoob. He's a monster.
And we also get to see Fred doing the ridiculous lines like, yo, dog, and dog? Like, he puts on an accent for the scene. And I was like, later on. Whatever. And we learn why later that they speak that way.
Right.
Oh, no, we learned why beforehand. We forgot to cover the haunted house scene. So,
oh, yeah, the haunted house. Oh, we also missed over the where Daphne walks up to the guy doing the voodoo rituals on the dead Arnuki beast. No, he was
Arnuki beast is later.
He was sacrificing a dead chicken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fully like chicken he bought at the grocery store. Yeah, so then she's like, whatever you do, don't go up to that spooky island castle. Then she goes down this rabbit hole of, but you told me to go up there, so you didn't want me to go up there because you did want me to go up there. So then they all go up there naturally. And this leads to them all, like, almost dying on this, like, theme park ride that is horrendously just dangerous.
Yeah, everything about it. Like, who is this? Like, there was a track that led to a wall of knives and swords.
And there's a part where, the axes swinging from across the room. And I think we get one of my favorite lines in the movie is when Shaggy and Scooby get attacked by like robotic dining and like food, and he's like, "We're gonna have to do what we do best, bud. Eat our way out." And Scooby's like, "It's made of plastic." And Shaggy's like, "What do you care? You eat out of the toilet." And Scooby's like, "So do you." That was one that got me. Good. Yeah, we learned a lot more like about the relationship between Fred and Velma also in the scene, but we get also, I think, peak humor for the age that we were when this movie came out was the farting contest between Scooby and Shaggy.
Oh my goodness. Yes, I actually have that in my notes here for this was post training video. The classic burp off that led to a fart off scene. I just have peak comedy. I remember when I was like whatever age I was, like 10. I remember laughing so hard at the big fart scene. And then was it Daphne walks in and she just stands there and they keep going. And it's just oh man. And then you see when Shaggy turns around and realizes like he's ripping out the big one right now. He turns around and sees Daphne's like whoop, and he just sucks it back in a little bit.
This was a classic comedy
baritone. Yeah, just oh my god.
We also get to see the training video where we learn why the monsters talk like that. That's they teach them to talk like that. But the farting scene, I mean, even later when they're hiding from the villains and they're all like dressed as like Renaissance characters as part of like this display, and Shaggy's like oh no, and then he rips another fart like right into the fire and just like. That one got me the most, like, because like the farting as a kid made me cry laughing. But, like when I watched it this time, I kind of chuckled, but that one made me laugh out loud. Like I was when he's like oh no, and then farts again. Classic comedy. I mean, this movie just filled with, like those ridiculous classic bits that are like still funny today. And then even the bits that weren't as funny are funny because they're so dated. Like the Sugar Ray bit is hilarious because it's Sugar Ray.
And there's a lot of elements they used from the cartoon series where like, they'd go hide in plain sight in like 3 seconds. Right? When they get dressed up in the armor. That's like 3-second transition. It's like, oh man. It's just they're so true to those kind of elements of the cartoon series that I think, this actually turned out to be a really well done, touch on the nostalgia, but also throw in some more adult references that makes people laugh now versus when they were watching it when they're growing up.
Yeah, even Shaggy saying the line a couple times, "Scooby Doo, where are you?" Like the name of the actual cartoon. Like, it's pretty cool that they did that a few times as well. And then we get to a point where now we know the villain is Scrappy Doo in a robotic version of one Mr. Emil Montevarius, owner and curator of Spooky Island. And he was like having these monsters rip out headless protoplasmic souls to then use those souls to then become a bigger monster but he needed Scooby-Doo's soul because he needed a pure soul to then become the monster, and then
yeah, there's a lot of like 1950s murder investigations where you have like a pin here with a piece of yarn that goes here, and so you can follow, maybe you can see some kind of way out of this. It was more just to get rid of Mystery Inc.
Yeah.
So there's no real motivation for being the bad guy other than being bad, which I hate that as a motive.
Yeah. One thing I did want to cover too was the scene where after Shaggy rescues the gang's protoplasmic heads, is they do some body switching, which I think is one of the funniest parts of this movie is when Fred is in Daphne's body and he's like, "I can look at myself naked," and then he just like looks down his shirt.
Yeah, I like Shaggy in Velma's body. He's like, like, why am I wearing a dress? And he's just doing this little dance.
Or when Shaggy's in Velma's body, or Daphne's body, he's like Daph, don't you ever eat?
Yeah, I really do appreciate they did 3 or 4 body switches in that. They could have just done like 1 or 2. No, they did at least 3. I think they might have done 4.
And this is going to sound funny, like a joke, but it did show the actors' range of them all kind of playing each other really well, actually. Because like that trope is done so much throughout movies and TV. Like they actually did it pretty well too.
Yeah, that must have been pretty awkward to film. Where you just like mouthing, like they're timing what they say.
It's fantastic.
Just a different way to talk.
Yeah. So then we kind of get into like, our big like climax in the movie is Scooby's been taken. He's the soul that Scrappy needs to then become this big monster and be bad and get rid of the gang. And then we have this big fight scene. Like now, Daphne shows she's not a damsel in distress anymore, so she's fighting the luchador guy because there's a luchador guy, and it's just like it's such a weird climactic fight scene. Like it kind of reminds me. It's not as good as, but reminds me of the chaos of the end of the SpongeBob SquarePants movie with like the I want a Goofy Goober rock. Like just the explosive chaos of that scene was just ridiculous but amazing as well.
Yeah, and the recruitment for Scooby when he's being recruited by Mr. Emil Montevarius to be the sacrifice.
Yeah.
He's trying to explain to Scooby what a sacrifice is, and Scooby's like, "What's that?" And he flicks a little bobblehead, and he's like, "That's a cat with a bobbing head," and he smacks him.
He's like, "Scooby, I want you to be a sacrifice." He's like, "Oh, rackra rice," and he's like, you can tell Scooby still has no idea what's going on. They made him like so lovably dumb in these two movies. Like I love those scenes where Scooby like just has no grasp of what's happening in the world around him. But like that's so hilarious because he's like like obviously he's a dog, but it's still funny.
Yeah, flying by the seat of his pants, and it always works out. It always ends up working out in some crazy theatrical way. It's really entertaining to watch.
It is. I think you're right. I think the second movie has a lot more of that and like does a lot better with that kind of like the tropes. But this was like the one that started all. This was the classic that got us to where we needed to be to have a second good movie.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're kind of getting to the 45-minute mark here. What else do you have in your notes that you really want to cover? I'd love to hear.
Okay, so
what you got.
I do like the Emil Montevarius unmasking scene.
Yes.
Where he kind of gets knocked out. Right, the big climax already happened, and they go to unmask him, and it's a robot. Right, you see, it's just so obvious that it's just like a big piece of. It's like where was that the whole movie? The classic as Scrappy's being locked up in the helicopter. It's like, oh, what got away with it was for your meddling kids, your stupid dog. But he's gonna say you sons of bitches. But they close the door on the helicopter before he starts to curse.
My headphones died. You keep talking. I'm gonna swap these out. You keep going.
They close the helicopter door before he finishes that curse word, and that's always, as a kid, that's always super funny to me. It's like, oh, he's gonna curse right there. They almost threw that by us.
Wait, what part? I missed it. My headphones working now.
So I was just talking about the scene where they lock up Scrappy Doo in the helicopter.
Oh yeah, and
he was going through. Yeah, he was gonna curse. They shut the door like as he's dropping the B word. It's like, oh man, they almost slipped one up right there. As a kid, that's super exciting. And then the credit scene. The credit scene is super fun.
Fantastic. I love the credit scene. Rivaling Marvel credit scenes.
Oh, they're eating the peppers. What Shaggy eats one, he says, like, them peppers is like hot. And then Scooby eats the whole can, the whole jar, and just he can't cool his mouth off. So he's grabbing all the water. He's smacking his face with the silver platter, making his stupid face implants in the platter.
And then Shaggy pulls his tongue out of his mouth and coats it with ketchup and mustard.
It cools down, and then they do it again.
They do it again. They gotta do it again.
Yeah, one more for the road. I do have some fun facts about the movie, just real quick.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
I got the budget was $84 million. It did $275 in the box office, which is huge. That's a massive.
Yeah, that's a big pull for that movie for sure.
It was filmed in Australia. It's pretty neat. This was actually the last title that William Hanna of Hanna-Barbera was actually an executive producer for. I think he died 2 months after this movie was released. So it was his last film.
Do you think he was happy with it?
I want to say he was probably pleased with it. I don't want to say happy. I bet his inner kid was like, this is going to go over pretty well. It was actually the #1 film in America for 2 weeks before it was dethroned by Austin Powers' Goldmember.
Oh my God!
You talk about a good month to go watch movies in the theaters. You got Scooby Doo and Austin Powers back to back. Ooh,
that's a good time. 2002 was a solid year for movies.
That's a super good movie. The whole year was just full of bangers. I got 30% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is not very good. But Rotten Tomatoes,
again, I think
don't really like it.
Critics were taking it for more than they intended it to, more than even the people who made it intended to be. if you look at it for what it was a live action remake of a classic cartoon for kids, that they nailed it perfectly for what they wanted.
For sure. And then my last note here, this is not so fun. So Freddie Prinze Jr., I thought he did a pretty good job in the movie.
Yeah.
He was nominated for a Razzie for Worst Supporting Actor.
That's sad. Did he win?
He lost. No, he didn't win. He lost to Hayden Christensen of Star Wars Episode 2, which I think that's a well-deserved award for that guy. He likes sand, or he hates sand.
He hates sand. It's coarse. See, I don't think the movie did that bad. Like, in my opinion,
it was a good movie.
But also, like,
I watched it this week. It was really good.
Fantastic. I also wonder why they came back. When you think about it, like, if the movie did that badly, as far as like the critics and everything, you'd wonder like how Warner Bros. Got approved for a second one and why these actors came back to do it again. Like, thank God they did, because the second one was far better. But still,
yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, it did 275 box office, which that's a big number. That's a pretty big number.
Yeah. Well, all right. That was fantastic. I think I'm going to move into the beer now, if you're cool with that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we have a beer from Almanac Brewing Company, which is a brewery we've never done before. They are a Northern California brewing company. And this beer, Secret Notion, is a romantic sour ale aged with wine grapes previously used to make a bold Zinfandel. I don't know what that is. I think it's a wine of some kind. It's basically just a crazy good sour with... it was a collaboration with I'm gonna butcher the name, Dashe Cellars, and it's a sour ale aged in oak barrels with Zinfandel grapes. It's actually really, really good. It's super fragrant, really good smell to it, really good taste to it. If you guys like sours, definitely go for it. If you don't, I'd stay away because it's like kind of like the top like sour kind of peak. So, Avery, you a fan of sours?
I actually am a fan of sours. Like, I would do like a 6-pack over like a weekend, but I wouldn't do like more than 2 in a sitting, right?
Yeah, I get that. I'm the same way, especially something like this is like very sour, but like if you like sours, it's really, really delicious. So definitely check out Almanac Brewing. I'm pretty sure they're open right now for delivery and stuff. If you live in the kind of like the NorCal, San Francisco Bay Area, a place I'm gonna have to go check out for sure. They're in like the Sonoma area, so definitely check them out if you can. And I think that wraps up our first Scooby Doo episode. How you feeling after your first episode of the show, Avery?
That's pretty fun. I was a little nervous to get go, and then start talking about it. And so, Scooby Doo just brings out this like natural calming energy about it. So, really easy topic to talk about, and really fun, energetic movie. A lot of really like highlights that we can talk about. I'm sure we missed a whole bunch of stuff, but
that's the hardest part with this show is we have a time frame that we can't get everything in. But and
there's just, you start talking about it and you skip ahead a little bit, and it's just like you could talk about this movie for the entire duration of the movie, right? You could talk about almost every scene individually, and it's just there's so many good standalone scenes. It's hard to hit everything.
I mean, is there anything like you can think of that we didn't like? What's your favorite scene in this movie? Like, what's
favorite scene of the movie,
or like one of your top scenes? Doesn't have to be like your absolute favorite. Like, what's the top scene for you?
So I do the whole training facility scene by itself. It's super funny. Like the way they reveal it, they're going through the bookcase trying to figure out which one opens the trapdoor that might not exist, and then actually it ends up opening up a door to the next room, which is pretty funny. Fred goes flying through the window. You see a little person who's never mentioned again as like a little henchman. And then you get the hilarious training scene, right? The movies, the little clips they do to train these people. It's just so ridiculous, so over the top, and it's so out of touch. It's so it's hilariously out of touch. It makes me laugh.
Yeah, I feel like it was something of like, it definitely had a vibe like that's what adults thought teens were like back in 2002. And it's so funny, like you said, how out of touch they were with what kids were doing at the time. It's so great. And even just watching it now, like almost 20 years later, like how that's still funny because it's still out of touch. But so much more now with how ridiculous. Like no one really spoke like that before, but now people really don't speak like that.
Yeah. What about you? What's your favorite scene?
Yeah, I'd have to say everything within that haunted house, like that haunted house ride, is some of the best. Like, first of all, character development, like Velma and Fred's relationship, and Shaggy and Scooby being ridiculous and farting. That's always hysterical. and like the plot building of like that's like the only scene I think that has like point A, point B, like film references and film steps that we don't really get in like a lot of other scenes in this movie of like actual like plot building. So I think that's what like, and it was funny and it was like so well done. The acting I think was at its best in that scene. So I definitely say anything within that like haunted mansion.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of good quips in there too. Like Fred saying, "Hey, I'm a man of substance. Dorky chicks like you turn me on too." It's like, wow, okay.
All right, Fred. Yeah, I completely forgot about the line. That's hysterical. Yeah, that was I think probably my favorite scene in the movie. I think I like quips and stuff here and there, like when Fred's talking to Mr. Monteverius, and he's like, "No offense, but you just creep me out." And he's like, and Monteverius like, "Oh, yep." Like he totally gets like, "Yep, I creep people out." Like
Or when they're interviewing people. Like, have you ever seen anything kind of creepy lately? And they work on Spooky Island, right? Like, what?
But before we wrap up, I want to give one more shout out to Melvin Dew.
Melvin Dew.
Carried the movie on his back.
So for those interested, it looks like Melvin dies in front of Scooby Doo by the hands of Scrappy in issue 53 of the manga, according to the copy pasta. So if there is a manga, issue 53 is Melvin Dew's heroic sacrifice to save Scooby's life, it looks like.
I need to see this. I need to know if this is what this is. You need to send me this after. All right, well, I think that about wraps it up. Before I say goodbye to Avery, I'm going to say, don't forget we're on everywhere you listen to podcasts and YouTube. Don't forget, this is the first month we're doing it, only 2 a month from now on. I got too busy to do it every single week, so the first and third Monday of every month will be a new episode. So in 2 weeks, you'll have Avery and I back to talk about Scooby Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed. So thank you guys so much for watching. Avery, thank you so much for being here, man. I'm glad you came on the show finally.
Yeah, it's been a blast.
Awesome, man. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Bye.